you wanted to hear a little bit about our infrastructure, right? So, we originally started off in AWS. The idea was actually to have AWS and Google Cloud. We were going to have both, but we ended up just having different locations and availability zones for AWS. And what became quite apparent after a while is, we always knew we wanted to go off to our own infrastructure, but AWS was there to right size. We didn't really know what kind of equipment we needed to get. But what became quite apparent is AWS is damn expensive, and Node.js and especially the disk and memory requirements can be pretty heavy. So you could run it all in AWS, but it would cost you a bomb. The affordable AWS servers just don't cut it. Than the normal elastic block storage that you get. It's a type of SAN connected storage that you've got, goes over it uses the network in order to connect you through to your volumes. It's just really slow as far as IOPS go. So I was finding that Node.js wasn't even keeping up anymore. The database wasn't syncing, it was just behind. Well, that's if you're doing some stuff like history and stuff. You're actually doing something where you're trying to build a larger volume. So what we ended up doing is looking around Australia for something that was affordable, that was also going to be a decent level data center. So we ended up partnering with a company called Servers Australia, and they lease us space inside Equinix in Sydney. So we've got two geographically separate Sydney data centers. I always get it mixed up. I think it's SIS3 and SIS4. It might be SIS3 and SIS2, but whatever it is, they're about 2 Ks apart from each other in Sydney, where we've got a little space where we've got bare metal servers in racks. And then all of a sudden we could purchase a whole pile of RAM, and we're using NVMe storage now as well. SSD and NVMe, running all of our block producers on their own server and their own bare metal with direct access through to the CPU, where we've done tweaking as far as performance, where you go and you manipulate the idle states of the CPU, so you try and keep it as close to turbo the whole time. And that brought us down. We're obviously not producing blocks on mainnet, but like on Jungle Testnet, we're often down around the 1.1, 1.2 millisecond using the Aloha benchmark. But it's also given us the opportunity to expand out to other chains. So not only did we run obviously EOS mainnet, where that's the vast majority of our infrastructure. We can talk about history. And the inordinate amount of servers I've got running, trying to sync and get our databases right. But we've also got infrastructure for Warbly, which is a financial services network. Soon to have some really big announcements. We run infrastructure for Telos, which is also, you guys are on Telos?
Not yet. We're trying to determine which chains to jump on next. So
yeah, so Telos, great community. Obviously a side chain of EOS. We ran EOS Force, which was a really good experience for us, and it still is. Where we actually top 25 block producers there, where it's definitely helped us with bridging the social divide between the rest of the world and China. I think we're like one of only 2 or 3 non-Chinese block producers, and it's great. The guys are very accommodating, and we have BP calls, and it's really, really good.
That's good to know. We looked into some of those other chains, and the Chinese community, like I say, that's what I was explaining to the guys. Is it's really 2 different communities that just coexist because of the language barriers.
So
Google Translate's amazing.
Google Translate, yeah. We can give you a hand with setting up your nodes, because there's a few tricks that you need to do in order to get it to operate effectively. It's not your general deployment. Then we also run infrastructure for BOSS, which is technical bleeding edge type innovation chain. and we also run infrastructure for Meet One. So Meet One is, even though it's kind of Chinese based, Meet One's a lot more international. Where obviously they have the Meet wallet that we all use. We've got a very good relationship with Meet One, the block producer, from way back before the launch, and we actually on their program in order to help adoption and bring in new users into the EOS space, where we help people create their first wallets, and we can create free wallets for them and that kind of thing. There was 6, right? Did I say 6? Is that all of them? So,
Meet One, Telos, Boz, Warbly, Telos.
Yeah.
EOSforce.
Yeah, that's 6. Yeah. And then we run infrastructure for Previos, which is it's just a single node at the moment running on Jungle Network, which aims to enable secure file sharing across the EOS network. That's also GDPR compliant. That's been quite an interesting project as well. And then also on the testnet, we're also on the Jungle testnet. So having our own infrastructure gives us the opportunity to run up all these chains without without a huge cost incursion. And before you think they're all running on one server, they're not actually. We've got our own firewalls. We've got firewall clusters. We're using Junipers, SRXs, and we're using A10 load balancers, because they're a little bit more affordable, but they do the job as well. And then the servers themselves are super micros. So it's still Intel chips, but super micros, also like a reasonably decent value, not the heaviest power consumption. And it's got a very nice, it's like a KVM interface that you can use. It's called RPMI, where it's like this software front end where I can get in and manipulate the BIOS remotely, because that's the thing. You can't get into the data center. If I want to get into it, it's going to be a hell of a task. All the servers are there. I can get into them even if they're turned off. I can get into them. I can turn them on and that kind of stuff, which is great. And that's why I find it quite difficult. I know a lot of guys they run consumer grade CPUs in the data center, and in order for us to be able to do that, we would need to buy separate boxes to be able to connect to those boxes, rather than have these all encompassing enterprise servers, which kind of work for us. And so I suppose that's the infrastructure. Hey? We've got gigabit internet access. We've got multiple northbound feeds, and the load balancer side is a completely separate feed of its own, which has been pretty good for us so far. So I'm liking it, and I can scale it, and it's definitely modular. So if I take on another chain, it's easy for me to spin up another LAN, or not really spin up so much, just put another server on a different LAN and give it its own internet access, and have our central monitoring to be able to talk to those servers, and I can get to it all remotely. But so it's been good. I think at the beginning there weren't many chains, so it was more a curiosity. Let's get involved. But now, as they're coming out of the woodwork, it's definitely about how is this going to bring people into the EOSI world or blockchain, or how people adopt it, or what benefit can we get from doing it? Not so much in financial benefit, but benefit like, okay, we're going to be running a cool IPFS solution, or hey, look, we're going to be doing some excellent reversible block tweaks. That kind of stuff is fun. And it's good for us to cut our teeth in it. But yeah, these days I think it's we're a lot more careful about what we take on. I think what takes up the most amount of time is the engagement with the different communities, where it's all fine to run the infrastructure, and we've got to a point where it's not too difficult to add another one. But engaging with the community and making sure that you participate in the discussion, that takes up the time. So, and everybody's time poor when it comes to, crypto world. You're already doing 80-hour weeks.
Right. You guys got to promise to get together with us again in the future.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, No problem at all, man.
Yeah, it's really great to meet you guys, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Simon, thanks for reaching out. Thanks for reaching out.
No worries. Thanks, guys. We'll talk again soon.
All right,
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Yeah, absolutely.